Business owners, are you suffering from a bad case of perception gap? Hi everyone, my name is Nigel Hart. Welcome to the Clever Content channel brought to you by Nexus Creative. Today, we're going to delve deep into the perception gap. Every business suffers from a perception gap. You, if you run a business, you will no doubt have an opinion about how good or bad your service or product is. The difficulty arrives is when you introduce potential customers into the mix. Potential customers don't always respond in the same way as existing customers. What makes them different is they don't know you and they haven't already formed a perception based on reality. They're forming their perception based on what you put out into the world, and that's it. Now, every customer is different. You may want to try and put them into personas and customer profiles, but there's always going to be a slight difference. There's always going to be micro elements that are different between customers. Now, this makes it very tricky to work out what it is that a potential customer wants from you. One of the hardest things for a business owner or marketeer to do is to align what they offer with what the customer wants. This is where the perception gap comes into play. How you perceive the business and how a potential customer sees the business is always going to be different. You have all of the knowledge, but none of the need. They have all of the need, but none of the knowledge. A potential customer will base their perception on the point of contact they have with you, whether that be the website, social media, telephone call, whatever. That's the only way they're going to get any understanding of you as a business. This is where the perception gap creeps in. So here's the harsh truth. Customers don't buy what you think you are selling. They buy what they perceive you are selling. If there's a gap between those two perceptions, that's where the trouble occurs. Now, here's the problem. If there is a perception gap, who moves? Do you expect your customers to engage with you differently, or do you change what you offer to your customers? That's a tricky one. Problem is, it all comes down to the truth. We all know the story about Gerald Ratner and Ratners. If you don't, I'll come back to that in a moment, but that was all about perception and telling the truth. Now I'm talking to you, marketeers. I understand how you feel. I understand the situation you are, what your role is within the business. I know that it's your responsibility to generate a sales funnel and raise awareness of products and services. And I also understand how difficult it is to sometimes tell the truth. Because sometimes products aren't always brilliant. They're not always best in class. They're not always the number one item, and that makes life difficult. How do you encourage customers to buy into that product or service if it's not the best out there, if it's not leading the way, if it's not unique? Number one, the company overpromises on what they're going to deliver. Number two, the company failed to communicate what they actually offer. Both create a problem. Overpromising will seem great initially. Customers will purchase something and they'll expect something great, but ultimately there's no long-term strategy. Once they receive their product or service, they're going to be disappointed. It's not going to deliver what they were promised. What their perception about that product or service was initially isn't going to be reflected in what they receive. This will lead to customers being unhappy and having buyer's regret. So if you're under-promoting your business, if you're underselling what it is you have to offer, then this also has a problem. The long term will be better because potential customers will come on board, they'll become customers, and they'll be so impressed with the service that they've got because it won't align to what they perceived. It'll be better, they'll be surprised, they'll be happy. The short-term problem is it's more difficult to convert potential customers into customers because they won't perceive that you have what they want or have what they need. So if you don't know about the story of Gerald Ratner, he was running a well-known chain of high street jewelers on the kind of budget end of the offering, but in 1991 he stood up and said to an audience that his products were crap. Now, the impact of that comment was to destroy the business pretty much overnight and saw a massive decline in all of their sales and their customer reputation and everything that went with that. They lost loads of business, they lost $500 million and eventually had to rebrand and relaunch the business from pretty much scratch. I'll read out Gerald Ratner's quote for you so you understand the context of it. We also do cut glass sherry decanters complete with 6 glasses on a silver plated tray that your butler can serve you drinks on, all for $4.95. People say, how can you sell this at such a low price? I say, because it's totally crap. He literally
actually said it's crap.
Yes.
I thought you were being sort of like hyperbolic with that. No.
I say because it's total crap.
So Ratner's perception. He saw his products as good value for money, offering the public an affordable way of owning jewellery. So the customer's perception. They assumed a higher quality of product. Instead of bridging the gap and explaining the value proposition, when he dismissed his own product as crap, he insulted his customer and undermined the perception of the product. So if you now feel that you're underselling your company and that your marketing doesn't really reflect what you offer as a company or the services that you offer, then there is a simple way of resolving that problem. And likewise, if you feel now you're over-promising and you're finding that your customers are disappointed by what you offer, there is also a simple way to resolve that problem. Narrowing the perception gap. Closing down and making sure that what you sell on your marketing is what you actually deliver to your customers. The Mind the Gap solution, here to resolve your perception gap. 1, make friends with your customers. Talk to your customers. They are the ultimate judges. Why do they buy from you? Is there anything you can do to improve what you do? What was the perception they had of you before they became customers? 2, interact with potential customers. Get out there and talk to people who didn't buy from you, who have shown an interest in purchasing from you but didn't step over the line and press the button. What are the pain points? What made them choose your competitor instead of coming to you for the product or service that you offer? This is market research in action. The best way of understanding your potential customer is to actually engage with them. If you've put a quote out and a proposal out and you've not had a response from it, you didn't get the job, spend more time with that potential customer and understand why they didn't come to you for your product. Number 3, nailing your marketing. This is the most important thing. If you get to understand your potential customer and you've listened to your existing customer, you've then got to take that information and put it out there for potential customers to engage with. Update your website, update everything to do with your brand, work on the brand experience and just get that message out, delivered clearly to your audience. Are your values aligned with what your customers want? And be honest and be willing to adapt. Number 4, deliver what your customers want. This is the core element of the perception gap. At one side, you've got the perception of the customer and what they perceive your business to be like. On the other side, you've got what you perceived you are offering the customer. In the middle is the gap. Making sure that you move your perception towards their perception and aligning those two things, overlapping them if possible, is the only way you're going to close the perception gap and improve your business outcomes. So hopefully that will help you close your perception gap. Hopefully that will help you understand what it is your customers want. So I'll also have a bonus tip, but first, if you don't want to miss out on any future marketing and business videos and tips and hints, then please do subscribe. If there is anything you'd like to know more about or you think we've missed, or you'd like to know in the future, please do put them in the comments and we will do our best to answer all the questions. If you could hit like, that will really help us to know that you like the content that we're creating. So one extra bit of bonus information is make sure you do the mind test every year because perceptions change and things evolve, your customers evolve, you evolve as a business, and it's important that you make sure you keep up to date with those two perceptions. So this is a typical mistake that a business makes, and here are a few more.